Basically, what we're looking at here is the as Micah said, we advanced to a what's really a concept design level, trying to establish the actual paving geometry, what the actual site will look like at the completion of this project. It's not a detailed vertical geometry associated with the project or details at this point, but we really worked through to establish what the program will look like, to meet FAA design standards, and then also what the airport's trying to develop here. So ultimately, the project includes the extension of the runway 4N that can be seen here. This is a 1,900-foot extension from what exists today, as well as the shift of the runway 22N to meet design standards for the runway protection zone and runway safety area, with regards to Centerville Road and Route 50. At the end of the day, this will be a 6,400-foot runway with no declared distances. That's basically unchanged from prior analyses. The project additionally includes the improvement of the runway 422 safety area, basically surrounding the runway, 500-foot wide with 1,000-foot extended safety areas on each end. What that really means is grades. So grades will change. Obviously, right now the runway is sloped from the 22N to the 4N. When we remove this pavement off of this end, grades will actually slope back away from the 22N to meet FAA design standards. And as well on the runway 4N, you can see where the proposed threshold is. Just everyone to have proximity. This about where my cursor is going here. This is the existing fence line, and then the Black & Decker facility off the south end of the airport. As can be seen here, with where the runway 4N is, it's entirely on airport property, but then with the extended 1,000-foot runway safety area, that basically covers the footprint of the Black & Decker facility. So with improving the runway safety area and the amount of the amount of work associated with that, just by example, in this area, we have approximately 15 feet of fill over what the existing grade is. There's a actual stream that flows through here that'll be relocated as part of this project. The project also includes the rehabilitation of all of existing runway 422, in addition to the extension. So with that will include a new runway profile and grade. So this is, for the most part, mill and overlay, a micro mill and overlay of the existing runway, but the new vertical profile is designed to work with the entire runway. So conceptually, the elevation of the runway 4N is approximately the same as what existing is now. It's actually being raised to an elevation of 36.5. And then the runway 22N will be an elevation of 67.5, which is actually a 10-foot vertical difference from, or less change from what is existing. So right now you have a 40-foot change in elevation from the runway 22N to the runway 4N. And once this project's complete, we're actually taking 10 feet out of that because obviously we're shifting away from the high end. The project also includes the removal of the shoulder pavement for runway 422, as well as 1533, where within the limits, we're additionally extending taxiway alpha and rehabilitating the taxiway alpha pavement full length of runway 422. And then we're going to be rehabilitating and really bringing up the current standards, all the connector taxiways from taxiway alpha to runway 422, which really includes a variety of connectors. Now, obviously, with the change in where the runway 22 end is and shifting the threshold, we're bringing taxiway alpha from beyond the north of where the terminal apron is here, and then in to connect to runway 22. Current, I believe Mike has mentioned this in past board meetings, but current standards do not allow direct apron to runway access. So with that, aircraft taxiing from the apron to the runway must make a turn. That's just to avoid runway incursions. So the designs do include eliminating these direct runway apron access points from taxiway Delta and Echo as they exist today. So there is a shift in geometry because of that. Each the runway 22 end and runway 4 end, as opposed to the hold pad that exists today, there'll be bypass taxiways. These were what were evaluated in the environmental assessment and allow for a more fluid taxiing situation and also departures with those that don't necessarily need full length if there is backup on the taxiways. Aside from the bypass taxiways on each end, you can see there's a shift in geometry of some of the existing taxiways. This is to accommodate jet arrivals on what this connector here is referred to as taxiway Alpha 3 for arrivals landing runway 22, and then also for the jets that utilize Easton landing runway 4 for utilizing taxiway Alpha 5 will be able to depart and use either taxiway Delta or Echo or taxiway all the way to the terminal ramp. Is what these are spaced off of, and then there's a midpoint taxiway connector Alpha 4, which will serve to accommodate. It's actually halfway the midpoint of the runway, so it's 3,200 feet from each direction. So this will accommodate landings off of either runway end. For runway 4 landings, you'll be able to land basically all your small general aviation aircraft, which will be able to then depart on Alpha 4 prior to getting to the crosswind runway environment. With that, all of these taxiways are designed to accommodate group 3 clearances and group 3 pavement for exiting the runway. For the most part, most of the operations here are group 1 or 2 aircraft, which forgive me terminology, but airplane design group size of the aircraft. But there are group 3 that also presently operate here, just not to a significant level. Additionally, this will include the rehabilitation of runway 1533 within the intersection of 422, basically from the taxiway Alpha limits down to the end of runway 33, and then the rehabilitation of taxiway Bravo to the end of runway 33 as well. Really, this was brought about with the grade changes that are associated with this and some of the drainage improvements, and Micah and the airport chose to take a little bigger look at, instead of just rehabilitating and kind of limiting the overall drainage improvements to maybe outside the RSA, which is typical. We didn't want to leave, like a 500-foot piece of pavement here that hasn't been touched when this is a multi-year program. So with that, the bringing this end to standards to meet FAA requirements does result in the elimination of what's more or less operates as like an inboard hold pad now. They're not allowed by standards, and to actually go to an outboard hold pad, the airport doesn't have the property here. So kind of mimicking what's being done with runway 4 and 22. There is a design which includes these bypass taxiways to the runway 33 end. That kind of covers pavement geometry limits, which really not to like downplay, but that kind of like says what the project is. But there's a whole host of other items that really go with this. And when you talk modernization of the airport, we are abandoning and more or less eliminating the electrical vaults that are co-located here up close on the north side of the south apron and off taxi lane Tango. These vaults, with where they're situated, there's currently wireless communication links to the tower, which have been known to fail, and then they're also not really well situated with how the airfield is moving to the south. So the design does include a new airfield lighting vault that's co-located just to the south of the air traffic control tower. There will be hard fiber connections to the tower for control of the new airfield lighting monitoring system. With that, there'll be a new, basically a new home run duct bank source that comes through the airfield and then powers the various lighting circuits that will be on the airport. That includes new 4-box L880 PAPIs for both runway 4 and 22. New standards are there will be new LED L880 PAPIs. There will also be new L881 PAPIs for runway 15 and 33. That's more of a wiring issue to circuit the old incandescent versus the LED PAPIs. So all 4 runway approaches will have new PAPIs installed. The project also includes the installation of the new ILS for runway 4. So that's a new glide slope. Obviously, with the runway 4 end shifting by 1,900 feet, there is a new glide slope that's being installed. New localizer also shifting for runway 4 approaches, but off the runway 22 end. And then there's a new localizer shelter and DME distance measuring equipment proposed also for the airport. I'll mention that these systems are all federally owned, but they are, the FAA is choosing to replace them with new equipment and then locate it to new standards associated with this project. We AECOM are working with a subcontract firm that actually does the performance modeling for these FAA systems. It's actually Ohio University that models the proposed performance, and then that helps what ultimately derives the FAA flight procedures for these new ILS approaches. And then also, obviously, there will be new GPS approaches for each end with the actual shift happening. That being said, aside from the ILS, there's a new approach lighting system. This is the abbreviated MALS-F, which is a medium approach lighting system with sequence flashers. So it's really a light bar with 5 lights out to the 1,000-foot decision point, leading up to the runway 4 end, and then the last 3 light bars, in addition to the approach lights, have 3 sequence flashers that will light up on arrival to the runway 4 end. I'll note that there are no visibility credits offered for that, but it was a item that was proposed and then advanced through the environmental assessment with the FAA. That being said, additionally, obviously with the brand new runway 422 pavement, there are brand new LED runway high intensity lights being installed. There's new LED taxiway lighting being installed with all of the new taxiway geometry and connectors. That's new LED to new standards, new spacing, with shifting all of the geometry as is taking place here. And then there is new airport-wide guidance signs being installed, namely due to the necessitated by the revised naming that the airport's advancing here for each of these taxiways. The biggest change is you'll have taxiway Alpha and taxiway Bravo to current standards. The obviously with a number of connectors, the naming is preferred to be numbered sequentially behind Alpha. So starting at the runway 4 end, your dominant approach, Alpha 1, Alpha 2, all the way through Alpha 7 to the runway 22 end. Similarly for taxiway Bravo, Micah and the Easton team are still looking into some of the naming conventions for how Alpha and Bravo will connect to the ramps. But conceptually, we have Delta Echo Foxtrot coming off of Alpha to the south apron and terminal apron, and then Golf Hotel to the southwest apron. The naming may exist for these connectors, and then they're just kind of looking at and seeing how the actual guidance signs will be named, if they're actually signifying to turn on to Golf or if it's just a turn to the apron. But that's being reviewed as part of the 45% design review. Sorry, long-winded. Additionally, project will include the replacement installation of the new primary wind cone. There is one that exists now, but that primary wind cone will be shifted slightly to be in a little better location for where runway 422 is being moved to, and then the existing segmented circle will also be replaced with a new segmented circle, which is being co-located with the primary wing cone. There'll additionally be 2 new supplemental wing cones installed outboard of taxiway Alpha for each runway 4 and 22. That kind of covers airfield lighting. From a civil site perspective, there's a also large upgrade. So the majority of this airfield drainage system is between 60 and almost 80 to 90 years old. So with that, obviously, we don't want to build brand new pavement and go through this massive project over top of old drainage pipes. So part of the EA evaluated, and then we advanced with design, drainage and stormwater replacements and improvements, also with building and changing the grades like we are for shifting the runway, the new grading associated with the runway safety area. That also necessitates a lot of drainage improvements. So basically, throughout this site, there are drainage, stormwater replacements and improvements occurring, which really is holistic around the airport. They are shown on here, but they're kind of small scale with how this is. I mentioned grading improvements associated kind of with the grading, drainage, stormwater. There is wetland waterways impacts, mitigation, and relocations required, namely related to where the new work associated with the project is. There is a existing stream that kind of flows from Mr. Hughes' Easton Utilities property here that flows through an existing culvert underneath the existing runway safety area, and then outfalls to the west of the site. That stream's being relocated into a new, bigger culvert system that's moving slightly to the south, which will then culvert, instead of just under the runway safety area, it'll culvert that stream basically all the way under the runway and taxiway from the limits, still working several hundred feet inside of airport property. Additionally, there's a very large wetland impact in this general vicinity. Basically, taxiway Alpha is being extended right over top of it. So for the project, we have this we're actually building a small mitigation site kind of down here to the southwest corner of the property, adjacent where there's an existing stormwater management pond that's serving mitigation for this impact. We and our AECOM, the county, and then also our environmental team has been advancing the permitting process of that really since the EA. We are actively actually engaged with them on the submission of this recent 45% design, which did include basically all the drainage and stormwater calculations to support the project for what's happening here as it relates to wetland waterway impacts. Additionally, there's obviously we are proposing the demolition of the Black & Decker former Black & Decker Talbot County Business Center site. That's the building and all adjacent parking lots and infrastructure. As mentioned here, with filling in the runway safety area, the actual grass grade, like where my cursor is, will actually be above the roof of the building till this project is done. So there is that significance of a grade change occurring here. That being said, this property is part of the voluntary cleanup program with the MDE due to its former use. There are some restrictions which we're working through with the MDE waste management office on how this is removed and what's basically happening. But that's another part of the environmental process. Nothing hazardous was found here in the environmental investigations, but there are elevated levels, which keeps the test within the non-residential, which this property is. Basically, you couldn't ever live here though, or have a residence exist on this property. But as we're removing this facility, the associated soils, all of that does have special testing requirements and will have to be transported appropriately off the airport when that happens, notwithstanding the concrete materials, which I'll mention now. We discussed the racetrack of the perimeter road earlier. This project, we are building a full service perimeter road around the airport, are actually looking at also advancing along the 3-3 end to get to this adjacent, I'm sorry, the 1-5 end to get to the maintenance yard stockpile back here as well. Namely, what's pushing or driving this is there's a stockpile of tens of thousands of cubic yards of dirt out here. I saw my surveyors on top of it when I drove in. They're actually surveying it now. And then also off the runway 22 end next to Centerville Road, there's about 60,000 cubic yards of available borrow, which can be used. Our intent is to use these soils for really non-structural fill outside the main runway profile, but within the overall fill limits. We did complete geotechnical evaluations of this and of both of these borrow sites. So building these on-site perimeter roads, dual purpose. We're keeping trucks off the local roadways entirely on airport. It'll be hard to know they're there unless you're standing at some of these fences when this is happening. And in order to build these perimeter roads, we're actually going to be removing these asphalt and concrete pavements, crushing on site, and then using them to actually build the roads. So the concrete asphalt that is on site at the Black & Decker facility will not, also that's just limiting hauling on local roads, limiting impact to the community. Conversely, obviously, it provides a benefit for Easton. They get a full perimeter road and it keeps costs down where we're not hauling away crushed material just to haul in new material. So this project does look to fully, I don't know if it's the right word, but exploit materials on site in order to rebuild the site. So limit waste. There is a quantity balancing act that's taking place with the overall program with how to do that and advance through each phase of the project. But with the first phase, we which I'll talk more about, we will build the majority of these roads with repurposing these parking lots. That being said, there are several new gated entrances proposed. That's still being coordinated with the airport as well as to exactly how those will look. But obviously with access to the airfield down here off the runway 4 end, there is a gated entrance proposed here. This project does include the installation of really 3 new points of utility services. That includes the new glide slope and shelter located here, the new airfield electrical vault, and the new localizer shelter and vault. Each of these 3 locations are really servicing to power the entire airfield. So most of the airfield circuits are current driven, so it's kind of a lower demand on having multiple powers, what could be 10 or 12 power sources throughout the airfield. That's really replicating what you have today. Excuse me, current driven systems. There's slightly more voltage driven with like the PAPIs, with how those operate, but also by moving this and then switching to LED, that really reduces the load. Each of these 3 power sources will also have emergency backup generators. So the entire airfield infrastructure in the event of an electrical outage will be backed by natural gas, is what the airport wanted to proceed with instead of a propane or diesel backup generator, which also allows the airport to basically hook into Easton Utilities natural gas services, which we are looking to coordinate and advance that with them as we move forward. Right now, the existing airfield electrical vault does have a small diesel generator, but these new generators will service the entirety of those airfield systems with that natural gas backup. Additional to the new utility services, I'll just mention big picture. There's several utilities we're working around. Very few are actually intended to be impacted. There's a utility corridor that crosses the airport here right beyond the runway 4 end with water, sanitary, natural gas. Easton Utilities has been great. They have some of the best data GIS files that our team has ever seen, as knowing where their stuff is. So compliments you.
Pick it up a few times, you can look at
it. Yeah. So to date, we're pretty, I believe everyone's pretty well informed, at least with what we have for utilities and then what we're trying to do. Obviously, with removing the building, all of these services to the Black & Decker building will eventually also be disconnected and abandoned back to Easton Utilities. Has another main corridor, so to speak, that parallels Route 322 here just inside airport property. We're not intending to work within that or impact that utility corridor. This utility corridor, with the grade change happening, we're actually increasing cover depth over top of that, which tentatively Easton Utilities did not have an issue with. I believe everyone might remember the 12-way concrete duct bank that Easton Utilities installed. And I'll mention for Q's sake, these are all existing easements that Easton Utilities does have through the airport, basically, which provides them access to cross the airport under with airport operations. This duct bank is in place. I believe Mike and myself actually just had a meeting with Q's electrical and civil team, I believe about 2 weeks ago. We can discuss that a little further, but they are in place of trying to relocate some of those service lines that are direct buried into that duct bank as this project moves forward. So that was my real high level. I apologize if I went on too long. To just kind of look at the full program of just the demolition. You can kind of see this little line going around the outside, the LOD, these various hatches here throughout basically show the demolition limits of the existing airfield pavements, and then some of the wetland and waterway impacts that we have, as well as, associated with the building here. Advancing to this next slide, this really shows then just the proposed runway taxiway environment, as well as the grading that was completed at the 45% level for both the new runway profile and the extended safety areas off of each end. So you can kind of really see here, this is with basically the demo layers turned off, that you can see what ultimately the airfield will look like. Obviously, there is a shift of the infrastructure to the south by 1,000 feet with the pavement being removed here. So that kind of covers the full program. I'll just kind of say, so overall schedule, we're contracted with the county here to advance this to subsequent stages of design, 75 and 100% level for this full program. So detailed site design grades, inverts, everything three-dimensionally to basically make this project happen. With the potential funding available versus what the actual total cost is, this will be built across multiple construction packages over several years. It could be as many as 8 years of construction in order to build this. It's based on the available funding. We're kind of always in this environment. We're always kind of in a reactionary mode of, for instance, FAA just released, I believe that was last Wednesday, MICA's available funding for this year's construction package. So we now have a set figure that we're working towards to try to bid. We have approximately 3 weeks to get that project out to bid for bid package 1 based on that available funding. And then basically that same process follows every year, where we're bidding a project according to the funds that are allotted to Easton Airport. So that amount may vary from year to year. It may go up, it may go down. I won't discuss the details of what those amounts are, but by advancing this full program design and looking bigger picture at what this airport, is how it's being modernized and developed, taking that full design to that level, we're then able to much more quickly, obviously, break out manageable bid packages. And then also we're then I idealistically always working towards that full program where, we're not being short-sighted with what this runway profile might look like without having designed of the runway rehab. So looking at each of these programs I mentioned, it's could be very overwhelming or a lot happening, but it's going to be a lot happening over many years. With that, it at times will probably look almost like a continuous construction environment throughout what will be the next 6 to 8 years. But there will be phases and plan sequences that are part of each bid package. So we talk phases, which I'll talk phase one or package one of what we're about to bid. But within that package, there'll be specified work areas and a sequence of construction that actually ultimately goes into the bid documents. So just to advance to that now. So this is really that same overlay of what the proposed work is and where we're working. So this first bid package, it's anticipated to start. So we're going out to bid here in February. The airport has to submit a grant application by April, and then the FAA has up until September to actually award that grant and basically give the airport the funds to move the project forward. So with that, it's anticipated that this is a 2024 calendar year construction project. The limits here are shown over the proposed work. I'll switch to the following screen here shortly, which will show then where we're focused on, which you can see better from a demolition perspective. But really what we're doing here in this first phase is that this project includes several 100,000 cubic yards of fill in order to actually build up the runway profile and the extended safety area off of the runway 4N. For those familiar with the airport, approximately this orange dash line is where the existing fence is. And then this is actually agriculture field out here. It slopes down towards where this existing stream crossing is, and then back up to the runway end. What we're doing in this first construction package is filling all of this area to the designed runway and taxiway grades, and then actually overfilling what will look like your runway and taxiway, but it's just going to be grass. With the geotechnical investigations that happened here, there's and the amount of fill that's taking place, we have calculated amounts of settlement throughout this site. So by overfilling, we're also allowing that settlement to take place until we actually go to actually build the runway and taxiway profiles. So within basically north of the existing fence, we are placing embankments, what will be approximately 200,000 cubic yards in this first phase of which is really dirt, filling up in lifts to actually build that runway taxiway profile, establish the ultimate, going back to my last slide here, establishing the ultimate, this one's not working for some reason, so I'll go back. Establishing what those grades will look like, but in a grass environment, to also start to establish the drainage patterns that will exist. What's seen here in blue is we are completing the stream relocation into this first bid package, which will allow that to happen as the very first part of this project. These other blue lines are also additional drainage pipes and features that are being installed. So really building up the ground to establish that drainage stormwater as part of this first package. We, in order to do that, as mentioned earlier, we are building a portion of the gravel roads to access these various borrow sites to keep the soil on airport and then get to the work area in order to start to build this up. So these gravel roads will start to exist in the first package. They'll be built up as time elapses in the subsequent construction packages. We are also, because we're completing wetland impacts in the first package, we are building the wetland mitigation site in the first package. Really, I don't want to scare anyone with, we're working through, we have FAA wildlife biologists, we're not creating a wetland that's going to be a duck pond here in the approach. You have you have wetlands all over the airport now, and we're actually have a net loss, and we're relocating them and then also designing them in a way such that you won't have standing water. It's really just a mucky dirt environment. It will be located outside of the runway protection zone, off of the runway alignment, and then also outside of the what will be the ultimate airport perimeter fence. Also in package one, as mentioned previously, that the building will remain of the former Black and Decker Talbot County Business Center. The access to the building from Glebe Road will remain, as well as the parking necessary for the tenants that are intended to continue to occupy the building through this first construction package. But the majority of the parking lots, concrete loading docks, staging areas around what's really the east, north, and west perimeter of the building will be removed in this first package at its onset in order to start building these gravel perimeter roads to access the fill necessary to complete for the runway profile. Aside from that, within this first package, there is not bulk fill taking place. So once we remove these pavements, recover them to build these roads, really we're just stabilizing the ground and maintaining drainage to this existing stream. We're outside of the existing fence. So in this first phase, you won't see much grade change actually transpiring outside of the existing airport fence. Most of the grade change is taking place within the existing airport fence. Because for multiple reasons, what's shown here by this orange line is where the airport's actually building a temporary fence around basically the perimeter of the limited disturbance plan for the full program. This fence is intended to also provide a visual screen, so it'll be a chain link fence with visual screening fabric attached to it. Twofold: one, obviously we don't want the public in a construction zone, and two, as mentioned previously, this is in the voluntary cleanup program, so there's actually not allowed to be public interaction on it when we're exposing soils. There will be a soil testing program taking place. There's and we that's being kept separate though from where the public will not public, but from where the tenants will be using this existing building. So the temporary fencing will be one of the first things that the public will see get erected here to actually build this project. Moving, I have just one more page here, which is an aerial image kind of up close of what is basically happening in package one. You can kind of see up close the building. So we're removing everything seen in red in this orangish color. These parking lots around the perimeter of the building. This purple area is where there'll be temporary grading or restabilization taking place. You can see in green here, this is where the wetland mitigation site overlays to. And then, as mentioned, we're just basically grading to this existing stream to maintain the existing drainage systems associated with this building in this first package. Can see here, this blue dash line is the existing airport fence I was mentioning, and then this blue solid fence is the proposed temporary fencing that will be constructed. Off the north limits of this page is the mass earthwork fill limits on airport then, just kind of over an aerial background. That's my real brief overview. I apologize.